Okay, what I'm going to try to do today is break down the practice um, quiz, aggregate demand and aggregate supply, and try to give you as many possibilities as I can. So the first question is, most economists use aggregate demand and aggregate supply model primarily. All right, so when they say aggregate demand and aggregate supply, they're not using the model that we have in front of us. They're just saying short run aggregate demand and short run aggregate supply. So the answer would be A, short run fluctuations in the economy. During a recession, the economy experiences. So I have a recessionary gap here. And if you remember, real GDP, income, and employment move in the same direction. So if you're going from YP or to Y1, so if you're going to the LRAS to the left, notice that both income and employment are falling, okay? So then I could say D, falling employment and income, all right? So I think it's really important to remember those three things are moving together. Now, of course, we could look at another possibility, like they're not going to ask that on the regular quiz, but how about if they gave you an inflationary gap, right? Where, Y1 was to the right of YP. Obviously, if we're moving to the right, then real GDP, income, and employment are increasing. All right, so think of that. This is the recessionary gap, but think what would be happening if you had an inflationary gap. So that is question number 2. The aggregate demand and aggregate supply graph. Okay, here we have price level. How do we get price level? There's one of two ways. You either get it from the GDP deflator or you get it from the CPI index. And then the other axis is real GDP. So they have the aggregate demand and aggregate supply graph, and this is question number 3. See the right level, the price levels on the vertical axis that we see, and the price level can be measured by the GDP deflator. All right. Now, of course, they could ask you about the horizontal axis, which would be real GDP. Okay. So beware of just knowing both axes, which I think you guys would be pretty good with. The next question, which is question number 4, is referred to this grid. If the economy starts at A and there's a fall in aggregate demand, so we're going from A to D, all right? If they ask you about questions in the short run, all right, so here the question is in the long run. So I went from A to D. I'm at D. I'm making less product than I did at A. I need less workers. If the demand for workers decreases, all right, then wages are going to decrease. If wages decrease, that's going to be an impact on the SRAS curve. Since wages decrease, firms are making more money. If firms are making more money, they're going to supply more. So I'm going to go from D to C. So the answer is the economy moves to C in the long run. Okay. Now, the first thing I would say is, I explained how we went from A to C. What could we expect, on the test? They're probably not going to ask you this. They could ask you, if the economy goes to D, what happens to price level and output? Well, at D, price level decreases and output decreases. Okay, that's in the short run. Obviously, they could ask, if you go from A to D, what happens to unemployment or income? Well, we already taught. If you're going to the left, income decreases, employment decreases, unemployment increases. Now, let's look at a scenario where you go from A to B. Okay, what is going to happen in the long run? Okay, and actually, they're probably going to go, but they're going to start you at C. So let's just do it that way. I think that would be a better. So at C, if they say aggregate demand increases, you're going to go to B. In the short run, price levels up, output up. How about if they ask you in the long run? So I shifted aggregate demand, right? I get to B. All right. Now, what do I have to think of? I have to think at B, I'm making more product than C. All right. At B, I need more workers. If the demand for workers increases, wages are going to go up. If wages go up, supply is then going to shift left because firms are making less profit. Therefore, they're going to shift there. Okay? So you're going to go there, C to B to A. All right? So the question is, again, I answered the quiz question, but then think about A, what could shift from C to B to get them there? You know, what would increase aggregate demand? What would happen in the short run and what would happen in the long run? I think those are possibilities you would have to entertain. Okay. All right. Now we go to question number 5. Refer to the stock market boom. Okay. In the short run, what happens to price levels in our GDP? So the stock market boom. All right, that shifts aggregate demand to the right from A to B. So the first question is why? Well, if the stock market booms, people now have more money, so they can consume more. So that would be under consumption. Anytime wealth or income increases, consumption is going to increase. We're going to shift aggregate demand to the right. Okay, and if you look, price level went up, and so did real GDP. Now, how about if I wanted to think of other things? All right, income also increased, right? Because we've said our GDP, income, and employment. Employment has also increased. All right. Now, it is vital on this quiz to see here they asked you about the short run, and the other questions they have asked you about the long run. All right. So you got to be careful when you're reading, and I would underline in the questions short or long run. You know, what are they asking for? So stock market boom, optimism, they're always going to shift to the right. And talking about optimism, that is the next question. Refer to optimism. Which curve shifts and in which direction? All right, optimism is going to shift aggregate demand to the right. The reason for that is kind of twofold. One is consumers are going to feel good. They're going to think they're getting raises. Things are going to go good. Job security. They're going to spend more. Businesses are also going to invest more. Why? The economy is going good. Businesses are going to buy, maybe open up more stores, build more factories, buy more machines to prepare for the upcoming business. So that would shift it to the right. All right. All right. Now we've got optimism in the long run. I said, let's be prepared and let's read carefully short or long run. So optimism in the short run shifted AD to AD2, right? Optimism always will shift aggregate demand, and I described why. But now they're saying how in the long run different from the original one, all right? So let's just put some letters here because I think that might help us. So the original one is A, and the first move is to B, but we're in the short run, okay? We're not on the LRAS curve. Nominal wages are sticky, okay? So now we're in the short run. But at B, I'm making more product than A. I need more workers. The demand for workers increases. So there, as it says there, nominal wages will increase. Nominal wages increase. Firms are making less money. So the SRAS is going to shift to the left. All right. Again, the SRAS shifts to the left. And why is wages on all of these affecting the SRAS? RAP. Wages are a resource, right? If wages go up, the cost of making the product goes up. Therefore, firms are making less money. And that shifts it to the left. All right. Now, the question is here, how is the new long run different from the original? So C and A, all right, the price level is higher at C than A, but output is the same. We're on the original LRAS curve. So we could say D as in dogwood, the price level is higher and real GDP is the same. All right. Now, if this question, and you got to be prepared for it, would be pessimism, that pessimism would shift AD to the left. And I think we have a pessimism question coming up, so we'll deal with that when we get to it. Okay. All right. This is question 8, refer to pessimism. In the long run, the price expectations created. All right, so now, again, we're looking in the long run, okay? So I just want you to look at panel A here, and we would start, again, it's best to put. So we have A, and pessimism shifts aggregate demand to the left, right? Why? Okay, because consumers are worried about their jobs, job security, what's going to happen, wages might fall. So they're going to consume us. And then businesses aren't going to invest because they're worried the economy's going down. So they're not going to go out to invest. So consumption investment's down. All right, so their aggregate demand is going to be at B. All right, but this says in the long run, the change in price. Okay, so in the long run, so what's going to happen? All right, at B, I'm making less product than A. I need less workers. The demand for workers is down. So if the demand for workers is down, wages are down. Wages are down now, firms are going to make more profits, so they're going to want to supply more. So I'm going to shift from SRAS1 to SRAS2. Again, wages is RAP, resource, less wages, I'm going to shift supply to the right. And that's C as in Caroline for question number 8, okay? So we've kind of looked, what I like about the practice quiz is we looked at short run and long run, aggregate demand shifting left and right, both on, and again, on this one, a recessionary gap. On optimism, we've had the inflationary gap. All right, let's see what we have now. All right, when production cost rises, all right, if you look at the left graph, when production cost rises, you are going to shift SRAS to the left. Production cost is resources in RAP. All right, that could be wages, that could be the cost of cotton for shirts, that could be oil in transportation and gasoline. That's going to shift supply to the left. Now, I just put this on the right-hand side because, again, if I'm making less product at Y2 than YFE, I need less workers. If the demand for workers goes down, I just want to show you if demand for workers go down, wages decrease, okay? And here, if wages decrease, right, eventually I'm going to shift SRAS back to the right, and we're going to be back to where we started in the long run, okay? But anyhow, the question here was production cost rise, short run aggregate supply just shifts left. I just took that a little more, again, to try to talk to you about it. Now, number 10, which of the following would cause stagflation? Well, anything that causes the short run aggregate supply curve to shift left is going to cause stagflation. So it's D as in dogwood, short run aggregate supply shifts left, which is under the economy graph. Now, why is that stagflation? Let's take the inflation part, which is for inflation. We looked at price levels are going up. The stand part is output. Output is down, right? We're making less. So the economy is stagnating, all right? That's the worst of both worlds because you have an economy that's not, that has like higher unemployment, is producing less, and also has inflation. So you got like two problems on your hands at one time. All right, that could also be called cost push inflation. Why? Because the production costs are what are pushing the supply curve to the left, causing stagflation. All right, for whatever reason, they love testing it, and there it is on your practice quiz. All right. And number 11 is the old double shifter. So suppose the economy is in a long run equilibrium. Concerns about pollution. All right, pollution is part of RAP, actions of government, because the government here is going to restrict the production of electricity. All right, that's government regulation. All right, that is going to shift supply to the left because we're going to have less electricity. It's going to be harder to make things. All right, so supply is going to shift left, and when supply shifts left, price increases, quantity decreases. Now, simultaneously, the value of the dollar falls, which, by the way, you do not need to know, but just makes US prices seem cheaper. If price levels are cheaper, foreign countries are going to buy our goods, so net exports are going to increase, so AD is going to shift right. When you see increase in G, but AD is going to shift right, and that is price levels up, output up. Now, I look at both of these, and price levels are going to increase, but I don't know what's going to happen to output. So I'm going to go to C as in Caroline. The price level will rise. The real GDP might rise, fall, or stay the same. Okay. Number 12, which of the following can explain? And number 12 is really, if you look at that increase in government spending, because in World War II, we had to buy a lot of tanks, we had a lot of equipment that we didn't have, we had to hire a lot of military people, drafted them into the army. So that was an increase in government spending. And that would be it. I hope this breakdown would be helpful. Again, just to summarize, optimism, stock market boom, AD to the right. Pessimism, AD to the left. Okay. Be careful. Are they asking you short run results or long run results? Just remember, inflationary gap. Let me just turn to one like there. More workers, more product, need more workers, demand for labor, increases wages. Wages are part of RAP, SRAS. So resources, wages go up, company makes less money, supply shifts left. Okay. And that would be right here. Right. If I'm going in the other way and at Y1 here, and I'm in a recessionary gap, making less product, needing less workers, demand for workers is down, wages is down, supply to the right. Hopefully that was helpful, and good luck on the quiz.